श्री गोवर्धन की जय,
जय
जय
वृंदावन धाम की जय,
जय
जय
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय,
जय
गंगा माई की जय,
जय
जय
यमुना माई की जय,
जय
जय
तुलसी देवी की जय,
जय
भक्ति देवी की जय,
जय
जय
समवेता भक्त वृंद की जय,
जय
गौर प्रेम आनंदे.
हरि
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 हरि बोल।
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे
हरे कृष्ण
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे
हरे
कृष्णा
कृष्णा
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे
हरे
कृष्णा
कृष्णा
All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol.
हरि हरि बोल
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Putale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो
ओम नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय
वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम
ओम
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय
वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम
ओम
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते वासुदेवाय
वासुदेवाय
Reading Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, the chapter entitled The Glories of the Devotional Service of Srila Madhavendra Puri. We're text number 94. Nishringa Praladeshwar Prabhu. Would
Hare
you mind?
Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah.
Thank you.
পূর্বদিন প্রায় বিপ্র করিল রন্ধন তৈছে অন্নকূট গোপাল করিল ভোজন
The next day, almost as before, there was an Annakut ceremony. All the Brahmanas prepared foods and Gopal accepted them.
ব্রজবাসী লোকের কৃষ্ণে সহজ প্রীতি গোপালের সহজ প্রীতি ব্রজবাসী প্রতি
The ideal place to execute Krishna consciousness is Vrajabhumi or Vrindavan, where the people are naturally inclined to love Krishna, and Krishna is naturally inclined to love them. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 4:11, it is said, Jay yata mam prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajamyaham. There is a responsive cooperation between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. The more a devotee sincerely loves Krishna, the more Krishna reciprocates. So much so that a highly advanced devotee can talk with Krishna face to face. Krishna confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. The actual mission of human life is to understand Krishna and return home back to Godhead. Therefore, one who is sincerely engaged in the service of the Lord with love and faith can talk with Krishna and receive instructions by which he can speedily return home back to Godhead. Today, many scholars defend the science of religion, and they have some conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But religion without practical experience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is no religion at all. Srimad Bhagavatam describes this as a form of cheating. Religion means abiding by the orders of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one is not qualified to talk with him and take lessons from him, how can one understand the principles of religion? Thus, talks of religion or religious experience without Krishna consciousness are a useless waste of time. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Kadahmakyam Dadati Shapandantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask for the blessings and permission of all devotees, but particularly those who are senior by age and or advancement in Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada in this purport is describing a reciprocation between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the devotee or his devotees, especially prominent in Vrindavan Dham, but also existing wherever there's devotional service, especially pure devotional service, is performed for the pleasure of Krishna. And then he mentions the verse, the famous verse, Te Sam Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. If one is always engaged in service, devotional service to Krishna, with that special ingredient, with love, then Krishna reciprocates. Lord Krishna is not a dull stone or just a principle or an imaginary personality, but is a person and the Supreme Person. He can reciprocate with each one of us. It's not that there's a shortage of his mercy or his ability to reciprocate. In the material world, there comes up sometimes shortages of commodities that people are looking for. And so then oftentimes the price is increased because of the supply and demand curve. But Lord Krishna can give full mercy and full reciprocation to each and every one of the souls that are emanations from him originally. That was nicely demonstrated by Lord Krishna when he went to a particular town, and there were two devotees who simultaneously, or almost simultaneously, asked him to come to their homes so that they could properly respect and honor him. There was a Bahulashva and Shrutadev. Bahulashva was the king or kingly person, and Shrutadev was a Brahmin. So it might seem that, oh, how can he go to two places at once? But he did. And for sincere devotees, he will come to each one of our houses and preside there as his deity form in thousands and thousands of places, if he so desires, and if we have the interest to serve him sincerely. And what is that reciprocation that Krishna gives? In this purport, Srila Prabhupada explains. How does he reciprocate? This is a question, real question.
Give the instructions how to go back home, back to Godhead.
Yes. Instructions, realizations, further, and sometimes he says he will talk with the devotee. He will talk with the devotee. And later he comments that that's without Krishna consciousness or without being able to get directions from Krishna, there's no meaning of religion. So Krishna speaks directly. He always speaks through the spiritual master. One time, Jayadvaita, at that time he was the Swami, was speaking with Srila Prabhupada, and he asked the question that if Lord Krishna's pastimes are happening, in different universes, one after another, just like the rising sun is always rising someplace on the surface of the earth. So if we go back to Godhead, can we go to that universe where Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita and hearing Bhagavad Gita directly hear directly Bhagavad Gita from Lord Krishna, like Arjuna? So you know what Srila Prabhupada said? Anybody? No guesses?
I think yes.
Acharya Prabhu has his hand up. Very, very good. Thank you.
Someone was speaking before me.
Oh, I didn't know that. Who was that?
Yes, someone spoke. I heard someone's voice. Let them go first.
Okay.
I think yes, Prabhu.
Yes. Yes. And Acharya Prabhu?
This is just a guess. This is just a guess because I don't know the conversation, but I'm guessing Prabhupada might say you could hear directly now.
Yes. He said both things. Both things are correct. He said, yes, you can go to the universe where Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita and hear. But why do you want it? You can hear it directly now. Krishna, same Bhagavad Gita. These are the words of Krishna. And by doing that, that's Krishna's reciprocating with you directly. So we have that opportunity. The instructions of Krishna in the form of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, that's Krishna's speaking to us directly. Dharma tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. The orders of Krishna, that's the directions of Krishna, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Directly what he requests, he orders. That's religion. That is dharma. So that's a nice example. We can appreciate that. And interesting point also, there was when Srila Prabhupada was in Germany, there was a religious scholar by the name of Graf Durkheim. There was another scholar from Germany, Emil Durkheim, not that Durkheim, but Graf Durkheim. He was a theologian, and he came to Srila Prabhupada, and he was pressing Srila Prabhupada that, it's really important. He had several students, this Graf Durkheim, so that they get a realization. They get realization of Krishna, of God. He didn't mention Krishna, but realization of God, some practical realization. And Srila Prabhupada was again and again emphasizing the point that taking Krishna's instructions and following them, that's the beginning of realization. And following them not just as a matter of inconvenience, with begrudging, but enthusiastically, with sincerity. And then that is tantamount to following Krishna directly, or following his instructions directly. The difference is there between a realization may not be fully there in the beginning, but that's the beginning of realization. To take the orders of Krishna and follow them sincerely. A green mango is still a mango, and then as it matures, it will ripen and become very sweet. Similarly, by following these instructions of Krishna with enthusiasm, with sincerity, and with love, Krishna will reciprocate. How? By giving further instructions on how to advance in Krishna consciousness, ultimately to go back home, back to Godhead, which is the mission of our lives. So that's a very nice points being made here. There's also Srila Prabhupada in the verse, if we look up at the verse for a moment. See that word, the one Vrajavashi Loka Krishna Sahaja. That's the part of the word, like we use the word Sahajiya, which we usually say that's the people who take things cheaply. But see, the translation of Sahaja is natural. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur clarified that a Sahajiya, our natural tendency, is to serve Krishna. Jiver Svruphoy Krishna Nityadas. But the people who take things cheaply, or the Sahajiyas, really are Prakrita Sahajiyas. They're taking the material side of their natural propensity, not the spiritual side. Prakrita Sahajiyas. So he clarified that. And the natural propensity of people who are in Vrajabhumi or Vrindavan is to worship Krishna, to satisfy Krishna. So when one goes to Vrindavan, it's a wonderful place to be and to execute Krishna consciousness. And by executing Krishna consciousness in that place, Krishna is especially pleased because the results are multiplied many, many, many times. Srila Prabhupada used to say that, Lord, going to Vrindavan, you are situated right in Krishna's lap in Vrindavan. That's very interesting. So we see people in Vrindavan, they appreciate Krishna more and more lately by the influence of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The natural propensity was already there, but by the preaching of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, we're seeing that throngs and throngs of people have rejuvenated their natural love and interest in service to Krishna. So it used to be that when you go to Vrindavan, there were a few, people would laugh at the Hare Krishna movement. But now you go and practically everybody's got tilak and a bead bag and they're chanting Hare Krishna. Quite enlivening to see. Any comments or observations or on this verse?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Mother Sundari, yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this class. I'm wondering the last sentence of the purport. If we could go, maybe scroll down to the purport of this verse. Thank you so much. So that last sentence about thus talks of religion or religious experience without Krishna consciousness are a useless waste of time. I'm wondering, potential devotees who are not yet aware of Krishna's name or even the name of God, they just call him God in other religious traditions. but who devote some portion of their lives to worshiping God, offering prayers, just not having a real strong sense of who God is. Nevertheless, they're still engaging in some kind of devotional activity. And I'm thinking maybe more focusing on the Aishwarya concept of God. Are these souls not making any spiritual advancement from these activities?
What do you think?
I mean, I think they are, because I myself was in that position. And I feel like those are the seeds that can fructify into deeper devotion and more inquiry as to who God actually is. But according to this last sentence in the purport, this would be considered a useless waste of time.
That's how you'd interpret that last sentence?
I'm wondering, am I?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I would agree with you that they're making progress. So there might be a vague conception of God, but the sincerity that they have to try to understand and approach God will bring them to a fuller understanding, ultimately of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada would often talk with people and they would have some view of God, and Srila Prabhupada would say, well, what name of God do you give? And they say, well, I don't know the name. And Srila Prabhupada, so then if you don't know, here's the name Krishna. Here's the name Krishna. You can call him. If you don't know the name, you take this name. What objection do you have? You would say like that. But we see in the lives of many of the devotees of Krishna that in their beginning stages, they had interest in various spiritual pursuits, and by their sincerity, they were brought ultimately to appreciate Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there was advancement. Definitely. I agree with you.
So then how are we to understand that final sentence of the paragraph of this purport?
How would you understand it?
I'm confused by it.
Oh, okay.
It's
I
the
would say,
useless waste of time that's confusing me.
yeah. So without Krishna consciousness, so they have some, I would say that that sincerity they have to approach God and to understand God is a certain aspect, a grain of development of a portion of Krishna consciousness.
Oh, okay, I see. Thank you so
That's
much.
how I would take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. What do you, Acharya Prabhu? What do you say?
How did you know that I had an opinion to express on this?
Because you're a thoughtful person. That's why.
I think your answer was beautiful, and I have nothing to add to that. But I'll just say that there's a sort of broader point here, is that we in anything, whether it's science or religion or anything you read, you have to be careful about making a whole big decision or philosophy or worldview out of one sentence taken out of context. Because you could do that with Prabhupada and come up with all sorts of weird ideas. If someone reads this and they don't understand what Krishna consciousness is, and they think it only means like some Hindu version of worshiping God, then they'll misunderstand it or not accept it. And if you have a broader understanding, then you'll understand that Krishna consciousness means God consciousness, and it applies to everyone. And then in the context of Madhavendra Puri, it has more meaning. So this thing of like taking one sentence or one quote and building a whole, huge edifice out of it is not necessarily always a good idea without understanding context.
Yes, and we do that sometimes, and
Sure.
yeah, important. So trying to understand it in context with reference to other things. For example, I was reading in the Prabhupada memory book that a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, does the Pope make spiritual advancement?
Mm.
And Srila Prabhupada immediately said, yes, because he's doing God's work, he said. Of course, we know that popes generally are not following the four regulative principles, but just the fact that they're praying to God and they appreciate and they're trying to serve God in some way, that's their whole advancement. They may not reach the goal without following the four regulative principles, but etc. But still, there's room for advancement there. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhu. I really appreciate that
Sure, sure.
response.
And it's another interesting thing. This is the first, the first discussion of what's happening after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. He goes to Advaita Acharya's house, and then he's on his way to Puri. There are these interactions that Lord Chaitanya is describing with through Madhavendra Puri of and others of interactions with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his deity form, which is very, very interesting. And he especially appreciated these uh, pastimes. And although we don't usually think of sannyasis being heavily engaged in worship of the deity, but in Lord Chaitanya's case, the first uh, descriptions after taking sannyas on his way to Puri of devotional activities are focused on the interactions with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his deity form. In this case, in Kirchora Gopinath, and also then we'll read about Shakshi Gopal. That's very interesting. So usually we begin our part of our devotional service as we begin by chanting Hare Krishna. Then it's next thing is we appreciate worship of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his deity form. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati Tadaham Bhakti Upashitam Mashnami Priyatatmanaha. Offer me, develop this, set up this loving exchange. Give me a leaf, a fruit, a flower. Offer it with love. Offer it with love. Love means regularity and with attention, with cleanliness and enthusiasm. These things. Very nice point. With this, another point here is that these different residents of towns around Vrajabhumi were bringing annakut to offer to Lord Gopal every day, one day after another. So we won't hear that they continued to do that, but they were offering annakut one day after another, each town a different day. So sometimes it's said that if you start something with the deities, then you have to do it forever and ever and ever. Well, I'm not sure that's the case always, because here in this case, they were offering annakut for several days at the beginning of the reinstallation of Lord Gopal on top of Govardhan Hill. But we don't say that that's going to continue forever. What do you think? Although at Jagannath Puri, they're offering 56 items daily to Lord Jagannath. What do you think? Anyway, they were doing enthusiastic to come and offer to Lord Gopal these different offerings and annakut. Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay.
মহাপ্রসাদ খাইল আসিয়া সব লোক গোপাল দেখিয়া সবার খণ্ডে দুঃখ শোক
Throngs of people came from different villages to see the deity of Gopal, and they took Mahaprasadam sumptuously. When they saw the super excellent form of Lord Gopal, all their lamentation and unhappiness disappeared. So apparently this deity of Gopal became famous very quickly. Uh, uh, and in different parts of India, there are famous deities. We know this deity of Gopal later. Right now, the deity is in Nathdwara, and there are throngs of people that go there. And there's also deity of Venkateshwar named Balaji, where throngs of people come every day to see and get darshan and the blessings of Lord Balaji, Lord Venkateshwar. And in Vrindavan, you have the Krishna Balaram deities that thousands of people come every day for their darshan. In contrast, here that we see that the population is very interested to get the darshan of the deities, and throngs of people in the United States are very interested to go to a football game. So different culture, different culture. Throngs are going one way or the other way. But here, this type of approach helps one make advancement in spiritual life. The other type of approach keeps you in the material world. X97.
আশপাশ ব্রজভূমের যত গ্রাম সব এক এক দিন সবে করে মহোৎসব।
All the villages in neighboring Vrajbhumi, Vrindavan, became aware of the appearance of Gopal, and all the people from these villages came to see him. Day after day, they all performed the Anakut ceremony. X98.
গোপাল প্রকট শুনি নানা দেশ হইতে নানা দ্রব্য লইয়া লোক লাগিল আসিতে।
In this way, not only the neighboring villages, but all the other provinces came to know of Gopal's appearance. Thus, people came from all over, bringing a variety of presentations. That reminds me of when they first installed Lord Jagannath in San Francisco in 1967. Srila Prabhupada encouraged the attendees, the devotees, and guests to always bring something to offer to the Lord when they come to the temple. I think that's a tradition, isn't it? Along with their bodies and prayers, some offering, either some dal, rice, a donation, something. That's 99.
মথুরার লোক সব বড় বড় ধনী ভক্তি করি নানা দ্রব্য ভেড় দেয় আনি।
The people of Mathura, who are very big capitalists, also brought various presentations and offered them before the deity in devotional service. So they're making their offerings, and by making their offerings, it says in devotional service. So they were making their offerings and they weren't thinking, oh, by doing this, I'm going to pass my exams, or by doing this, I'm going to become rich. They were already rich. Or by doing this, I'll have a good wife or a good husband. But they're doing it just simply to please the deity of Gopal. And interesting, Prabhupada translates dhani, which is somebody who's wealthy, isn't it? Wealthy? Dhani?
রিচ।
Yeah, rich person. As Prabhupada calls them, very big capitalists from Mathura. Yeah. Next 100.
Well, it is a custom, it's a culture in India. A rich person, they are generally pious. As Prabhupada mentions many times, if they build the temple or mosque, they always give charity. Nowadays, culture may have changed a little bit, but still, this is very common till now. When some event happens, the people come and donate according to their capacity, especially rich people. they also lavishly they donate towards the cause.
What cause?
Any religious spiritual activity, prasadam distribution. Generally they do religious. Till now, any village, if you go also, any town, they will immediately come and, okay, I would like to give the fish today.
Oh, for pleasing the Lord.
Yeah,
Of course. Yeah.
they have those inclinations of still those good qualities are there, even though they can be somewhat rich, but good qualities are still there in many people. They are willing to offer.
Yes, it's very practical. In San Francisco, as soon as Srila Prabhupada said that, he gave those instruction. So everybody was bringing flowers, fruits, everything to the temple, even though, the most of the attendees at that time were hippie types. They didn't have much money, but a little flowers, some fruits, not expensive, and not to come empty-handed. And therefore, the temple didn't have to make big expenses. They were able to distribute prasadam widely, even though their kitchen was in a closet and they had only a few devotees there. But by that arrangement, yeah. So the tradition is to bring to the temple, or also to bring to a saintly person. They might bring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Mrigari, after he was instructed by Narad Muni, he was worried about his sustenance, but Narad said, "Oh, I'll take care of it. It'll be taken care of. Don't worry," because he was making his living by hunting. So, but people heard about him, and his wife were there worshiping and circumambulating the Tulsi Maharani, and all of his needs were taken care of by
Right.
this same tradition.
Because saintly person is also engages in Krishna service.
Yes. So
It
they
just-
don't take things for themselves. They use things, whatever they get, they use for service to Krishna.
Yeah, that's why they're also saintly. But unfortunately, yet a mass number of people have not developed that faith in the devotees. And they think that we can think, oh, if I give, he's going to eat. Right? So what do you say on that? Those things, but Krishna tells, many places that feeding the Vaishnavas. And we say, oh, he's eating, Krishna is not eating.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are 6 occupational duties of the Brahmin. Yajan, patan, dana, patigraha. Yajan means performing sacrifice, worship, and yajan means to teach others to do that, how to do that, very specifically. Yajan, patan. The Brahmin should be learned in the scriptures, and patan means teach others, not but teach others how to understand Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. That includes distributing that knowledge. And then dana patigraha, giving in charity and accepting in charity. So a Brahmin will take only as necessary for oneself, and whatever else they'll distribute to the temple, to Krishna, and whatever they get, whatever food they may get, they'll use to offer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's standard business, even of a Brahmin Vaishnav. And over time, people's faith in the Vaishnavas of the Hare Krishna movement has increased, I know, for sure, especially in India. Not as much in the United States, of course, but it's there. What do you think?
increased in what, devotees? Number of devotees?
No, and they're accepting Western or Eastern, doesn't matter. Devotees, followers of the Hare Krishna movement as bona fide Vaishnavas.
Yeah.
Who will, yeah.
Nowadays, a lot of recognition and acceptance is there. Yes, definitely. Yeah, that is definitely there.
Yeah, there are so many strictures about how to treat a Brahmin or Vaishnava, and the one should attempt to follow them. For example, a Brahmin isn't supposed to be punished. You know this?
Yeah.
But of course, in certain circumstances, people think they should punish Brahmins. But that means one of two things. Either they're not Brahmins, they think, oh, they're really not Brahmins, or they think it's okay just because, it's me doing it. So one should be very careful about those things because that degrades the society if one transgresses such strictures. Does that make sense?
Yeah. A lot of education and practice is needed. That's what I think we're discussing.
Yeah, yeah. That was when Ashvatthama killed the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi. There was a debate: should he be punished? And one side they said, well, he's not acting as a Brahmin, so he should be punished. But Draupadi said, no, no. Even her own children were murdered mercilessly. She said, no, no. He's the son of your teacher, Dronacharya. Then my Ashwatthama's mother will cry just like I'm crying. I don't want that. So she was very hesitant. And Lord Krishna came up with a plan to satisfy everybody. What was that? You remember?
Yeah. Removing the jewel and kind of insult for him also.
Yeah. So an insult is like death. Yeah. Or see, he murdered some kids. He murdered some kids and acting like in a Kshatriya. Brahmin's job is not necessarily to murder sleeping children. It is not. Definitely not. Definitely not to murder sleeping children. So.
Yes, thank you.
Next 100.
স্বর্ণ রৌপ্য বস্ত্র গন্ধ ভক্ষ উপহার অসংখ্য আইসে নিত্য বাড়িল ভাণ্ডার.
Thus, countless presentations of gold, silver, garments, scented articles, and eatables arrived. The store of Gopal increased daily. So this is all these things are given by the devotees and the capitalists. Text 101.
এক মহাধনী ক্ষত্রিয় করাইল মন্দির, কেহ পাক ভাণ্ডার কইল, কেহ তো প্রাচীর.
One very rich Kshatriya of the royal order constructed a temple. Someone made cooking utensils, and someone constructed boundary walls. So it looks like they were working together here. Good. People are doing different devotees doing different things. What's they're good at. Next 102.
এক এক ব্রজবাসী এক এক গাভী দিল, সহস্র সহস্র গাভী গোপালের হইল.
Each and every family residing in the land of Brajbhumi contributed 1 cow. In this way, thousands of cows became the property of Gopal. Purport. This is the way to install the deity, construct the temple, and increase the property of the temple. Everyone should be enthusiastic to contribute to the construction of the temple for the deity. And everyone should also contribute food for the distribution of prasadam. The devotees should preach the gospel of devotional service and thus engage people in practical service to the deity. Wealthy people can also be attracted to take part in these activities. In this way, everyone will become spiritually inclined, and the entire society will be converted to Krishna consciousness. The desire to satisfy the material senses will automatically diminish, and the senses will become so purified that they will be able to engage in bhakti, devotional service to the Lord. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. By serving the Lord, one's senses are gradually purified. The engagement of one's purified senses in the service of Lord Rishikesh is called bhakti. When the dormant propensity for bhakti is awakened, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He is. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattvata. Bhagavad Gita 1855. This is the process of giving humanity the chance to awaken Krishna consciousness. Thus, people can perfect their lives in all respects. So even here, the residents of Vrajabhumi and the nearby places are engaging in the service of Lord Gopal. And even though the main method for spiritual realization is in Kali Yuga is chanting the holy names of the Lord, worship of the deity is not to be neglected. And Jiva Goswami says, although it's not mentioned specifically here, that for any of the other kinds of devotional service, there's 9 kinds of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada, Sevanam, etc. For any of those other kinds of devotional service to be successful, they should be preceded and followed by the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada used to call the beads, the japa beads that we have, he used to say that they're your umbilical cord to Krishna. Had you heard that before? Your umbilical cord. It's like the baby is attached to the mother by the umbilical cord. Similarly, those beads attach you to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it would not be surprising that chanting of the holy names was also going along with their worship and offerings of devotional service in various ways to the Gopal deity. Therefore, the verse is Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Na Bhaved Grayam Indriye Sevan Mukhed Jivadao Swayam Eva Sparatyada. The materially blunt senses that we have, spiritual senses covered by material, they cannot approach Lord Krishna, His name, His qualities, His pastimes, His form. But by practice of devotional service, those senses become purified. And then He reveals Himself to the devotee by that devotional service, which begins with the tongue, Jivadao. Jivadao means the tongue, beginning with the tongue. Chanting Hare Krishna and tasting Krishna Prasad. Hare Krishna. Text 103.
গৌড় হইতে আইলা দুই বৈরাগী ব্রাহ্মণ পুরী গোসাই রাখিল তারে করিয়া যতন.
Eventually, 2 Brahmanas in the renounced order arrived from Bengal, and Madhavendra Puri, who liked them very much, kept them in Vrindavan and gave them all kinds of comforts. Text 104.
এই দুই শিষ্য করি সেবা সমর্পিল রাজসেবা হয় পুরীর আনন্দ বাড়িল.
These 2 were then initiated by Madhavendra Puri, and he entrusted them with the daily service of the Lord. This service was performed continuously, and the worship of the deity became very gorgeous. Thus, Madhavendra Puri was very pleased. Purport. The 6 Goswamis and their followers started many temples, including the temples of Govinda, Gopinath, Madan Mohan, Radha Damodar, Shyam Sundar, Radha Ramana, and Gokulananda. The disciples of the Goswamis were entrusted with the Seva Puja, deity worship, of these temples. It is not that the disciples were family members of the original Goswamis. All the Goswamis were in the renounced order of life, and Jiva Goswami in particular was a lifelong brahmachari. At present, Sevites assume the title of Goswami on the basis of their being engaged as Sevites of the deity. The Sevites who have inherited their positions now assume proprietorship of the temples, and some of them are selling the deity's property as if it were their own. However, the temples did not originally belong to these Sevites. So it's interesting that these 2 Bengali Brahmins who were in the renounced order, means they're sannyasis, came, and Madhavendra Puri initiated them. So apparently they hadn't been previously initiated into the Vaishnav path, Vaishnav Sampradaya. And then he encouraged them, giving them encouragements and some nice arrangements for their living, to engage continuously in the worship of the deities. So this is it's not a menial thing that should be performed by people who are unqualified, but the topmost qualified persons, these Brahmins who were sannyasis and then became Vaishnavas, were engaged in the service of the deities under the supervision of Srila Madhavendra Puri. In the Madhva Sampradaya, it's the system that only sannyasis, renunciants, do the deity worship. Others are not, at least in the main temples. There's 8 main temples in the Madhva Sampradaya. So apparently from the beginning, that was also there in the followers of Madhavendra Puri. Then Srila Prabhupada comments that the Goswamis who are now in charge of the temples, they were the family members of Brahmins who were also engaged in worship of the deities. But they're using the title. Goswami was really a misnomer, because Goswami is a title which should be used for those who are in the renounced order. Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Uduropasta Vegam, Etan Vegan Yo Vishaheta Dhira, Sarvam Apiman Pritivim Shashishyat. Someone who control the urges of the tongue, mind, anger, belly, genital, they can become Goswamis or spiritual teachers, spiritual masters. But unfortunately, those people who were disciples of the Goswamis assumed the Goswami name. Srila Prabhupada was not in favor of that system. And the difficulty came, as Prabhupada mentions, that those Goswamis who were family people, began to assume that the temples were their own property, and therefore they could sell stuff of the deities and collect the money for themselves. This is a problem we find in not only in some of these temples, but also around the world in various religious systems, that a person thinks that they own the temple, or they're the only exclusive controller of the temple, and it's passed down in family members to from generation to generation, as if it's their own place, belongs to them. This was also going on in the Christian system. There's quite a bit of discussion among Christians that in the beginning, it wasn't required that the priests were unmarried or sometimes celibate. But over time, because they found that the married priests tended to take over the churches and made it a family business, so it was more emphasis was put on the priests being non-married, at least in the Western Church, the Western Catholic, Roman Catholic Church, because of this tendency to take over and make the church or temple a family business. The Sis Goswamis, these are the original early temples in Vrindavan. Govindaji, Gopinath, Madan Mohan, Radha Damodar, by the different Goswamis and their disciples. Govinda temple was that Govindaji is by Rupa Goswami, Gopinath is by Madhu Pandit, Madan Mohan is by Sanatan Goswami, Radha Damodar, Jiva Goswami, Sham Sundar is by Shyamananda Prabhu, Radha Ramana is by Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Gokulananda, that temple is by Lokanath Goswami. So sometimes there is a bhajan that goes Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda Radhe, and then it goes Rup Goswami Pran Dhana He. So that was popularized early in ISKCON, and but it was specifically these 7 temples, along with glorifying the devotees who established those temples. Some people have extrapolated and then do the Radha to various deities all over the world, but that's not how it was originally given. These 7 temples were the original Gaudiya temples in Vrindavan, and we were encouraged to chant that prayer along with the glorification of the devotees who established these temples. Comments, questions?
So many things. It's interesting, Madhavendra Puri, though in Madhya Sampradaya, it was a culture that only sannyasis did the deity worship, or in Mathadis like that. Then you quoted, okay, the current temples, they take the title also as Goswamis and they claim proprietorship. And that's, of course, that's a very not good thing, try to claim as proprietor of this place and property. But then you quoted the Vacha Vega Manasa Krodha Vega Jivame. That verse applies to everybody. It is not only just sannyasis.
Especially for sannyasis, yeah.
Especially for sannyasis?
Yeah. You read the purport, it's there.
He says only for, especially for sannyasis, that is.
Well, I mean, yes, everyone should learn these controls, but it's a sarvam apimam pritivim sashishyat. You can become a spiritual master all over the world. Yes. And that's particularly, just like the verses there in Bhagavad Gita, anashrita karma palam karyam karma karotiya sasanyasi cha yogi cha nanyaragnya na chakriya. One who is not attached to the fruits of their work and works as they are obligated is in the renounced order of life and the true mystic. So similarly, it's for everybody, but especially sannyasis, yeah.
I think, sorry, sannyasi, then again, we have to properly define, because Krishna defines what is sannyas and what is sannyas order of life. There are 2 things, isn't it?
Well, you could say that. I mean, if you want to, yeah.
You gave the verse, sannyas is the one who can act in this principles, and the sannyas order of life is actually sannyasi. But here Madhavendra Puri looks like he gave a person who is a sannyas order of life.
Yes.
That's what I hear.
Yes.
So sannyasi means as devotee who practices Rupa Goswami's this principle given, they all can be called, say, even anyone can be called sannyas.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Just like Acharya Prabhu was saying, according to the context, you may say that way. we say sannyas, according to the context, we may be referring to the order or the principle.
Yeah. And when did, if he gave to these sannyasis, entrusted this to sannyasis, then when did, which sampradaya, Ballava
Vallabha
sampradaya,
Sampradaya.
when did they come into picture then?
Later. So the way I understand it is that some of the sons of Vallabhacharya, there was some difficulty with finding the proper pujaris, and so then the sons of Vallabhacharya, not Vallabhacharya himself, took over the worship. That was subsequent to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
That's why Ballavacharya is represented in white dress. I see, notice that. So he has a grahastha then.
Well, there's a whole story about that. And anyway, I want it's a little cloudy. Some people say different things about Vallabhacharya's sannyas or not. So I won't go in that direction. But in the Vallabha Sampradaya, subsequent to Vallabhacharya, there was not an emphasis on renunciation. No, they generally they're not sannyasis in the sannyas order. We'll say in the sannyas order in the Pushti Marg, not emphasized.
Okay, thank you. Just thought I'll bring these 2 points.
Yeah, sure. Very nice. Madhusutapa.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, we went to Vrindavan last month, and I just wanted to know who is Baki Bihari. Means we went to temple of the Baki Bihari Thakurji. So can you explain a little bit?
A little bit. I don't know much about Banki Bihari. I only know there was a devotee named Haridas, who was also Gaudiya, a Haridas Pandit, and he established that temple, old temple. But he was a little bit after, but still very old temple. That's my understanding. Maybe somebody else knows more.
Okay.
Do you know? Do you know Krishna Kirtan Prabhu?
Yeah, as you mentioned, that's what is also established by Haridas, but
that's not Haridas Thakur. That's not Haridas Thakur.
Yeah, right. Haridas Thakur didn't establish temple probably. So, and because the deity itself, Banke Vihar itself, so much of reciprocating so soon. That's why it becomes very attractive and very prominent in that place. And it is really a fact that Banke Vihari deity very much reciprocates. Otherwise, as you mentioned, they all are deities, established, installed by Gaudiya devotees. These
early temples, yeah. Because prior to Lord Chaitanya and the 6 Goswamis, practically people mostly had forgotten about the importance of Vrindavan.
Yeah.
And Lord Chaitanya was there. He rediscovered Radha Kund, Shyam Kund, and then he deputed the 6 Goswamis to excavate the places of Lord Krishna's pastimes and erect temples, which they did. So it was revived, although it wasn't fully forgotten, but was revived by the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, particularly the 6 Goswamis.
So if Mataji's point, it's a very good concern and very good points he brought it, what we should expect. In our understanding is that's also bona fide, coming the temple, and it's okay for us to worship. There's no difference installed by other Gaudiya Acharyas and Haridas. So we can go. But that's becoming very prominent because in the whole surrounding there, and they promote also. And also the deity himself is reciprocates very well. The deity worship is also very vibrant, and they do. I had my personal experiences also. I think one of my first temples is Banki Bihari as well.
In many of the temples in Vrindavan, there's very elaborate and wonderful deity worship. Especially, I mean, Krishna Balaram temple is very, very elaborate, wonderful deity worship. Unfortunately, some of the temples, even of the 6 Goswamis, is not very, they're very meager offerings and very meager worship, unfortunately. Just because of the passage of time and who is controlling it, it's become degraded, unfortunately.
Mm.
So some Acharya Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Finish what you were saying. I have a little additional tidbit about this Haridas Swami.
Good. Yeah.
You're done?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's just interesting that shortly after his passing, there was a big schism in their line between the householder Savites and the renounced ascetic branch of the line after him. So, you know what we were saying, what Prabhupada was saying earlier about the Savite Goswamis, householders who managed the temples. So there was actually a big schism in the line after him over that also.
And who took over?
I know nothing about beyond that, about the history of it, or if it even exists as a sampradaya nowadays. I don't, aside from the existence of that temple, I don't know anything about them.
Okay, yeah, I don't. I
Just
haven't
that
studied.
little tidbit of history I thought was interesting in light of what Prabhupada said about the Goswami.
Yeah, sure. So in ISKCON in 1976, there was a little bit of schism between the renunciants and the householders too. The Prabhupada
Yeah,
resolved that.
that's a great history also.
Yes. All right. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa
Kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo namo namo.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Kirtan Prabhu is going to India today. He's traveling to India today. So we should wish him a safe journey
Thank
for
you.
for his service there. Hare Krishna.
And
Hare
Krishna.
you are